And here's the thing I would suggest today is that gratitude isn't just an emotion that we feel and respond to. That gratitude is actually a habit that we can engage. It's a practice, it's a discipline. All right. Good to see you guys this morning. Man, wasn't worship just incredible this morning? Wow, so good to have Pastor Mac Brock in the house leading us, and what an awesome morning. So thank you for being here. Well, hey, the most exciting thing that has happened in our family over the last couple weeks is that my daughter Emma has gotten engaged. So somebody pray for me. I got to fund a wedding now. You know what I'm saying? But no, she's gotten engaged, and we're so excited for her and for her fiance, Christian. We love him. We've known his family for years. He's a kid that grew up in the church, and so it's kind of amazing to see all of this come together. But Christian took the proposal to a whole new level. Like he knew that my daughter loves San Diego, and that's where she went to college, and it's kind of her second home. And so he organized this whole thing. He got with my wife, Lori, and with our friend that lives in San Diego, Hosanna Wong, and they created this whole fake work itinerary for my daughter. Like she was gonna go on her days off down to San Diego and do all of this work for Hosanna, capturing content for social media and all of this. And I mean, it was a 3-day full-blown itinerary. It was crazy, the level they took it to. And so she goes down the first day. They actually do work all day. They do all the work. Then at the end of the day, she's like, we've got to go to the beach. I have a friend at the beach, and we're going to interview them for my book. And so they go down there, and they get there, and Christian is waiting right out there. And all of a sudden, Emma sees him, and she's totally shocked. She had no idea. She's like, what is happening right now? And he drops to one knee and asks her. So check out this picture. I mean, look at that. You got the water in the background. You got the perfect sunset. Everything is amazing. And I'm like, wow, Christian, you took it to a whole new level. Like, it really made me kind of feel bad for how I proposed to my wife when I thought about it, you know, because I'll just tell you the story real quick. Like I took her to a restaurant, okay? And then we were gonna eat, and I was gonna go to a park where we had kind of first hung out together. And so we go to this restaurant, we're sitting there, we're eating, and I look out the window and it's pouring down rain. I realize, I'm not gonna be able to ask her in the park. So the ring is down in the car. I'm like, I gotta go get the ring. So I say, I need to go to the restroom. I excuse myself, get in the elevator, take it down as fast as I can, run out to the car, run back in. I didn't really think about the fact that I was gonna have water all over me. And I walk back to the table, and she says, where have you been? And I realize, like, I'm wet. I'm like, well, I had to go out to the car to get my nasal spray because, you know, my nose has been stopped up. And she says, that's funny. She says, I have your nasal spray right here in my purse. She opens up her purse and pulls it out. And then I'm like, what's my next move, right? Do I take it? Do I use it? How far do I go with this? So I just, at that point, dropped to a knee and asked her to marry me in the restaurant. But the important thing is, both girls said yes, right? Come on, both girls said yes. Now, Christian had asked our blessing a few weeks before, and I appreciated him doing that. And in that moment, I got real emotional as we were meeting with him because I have prayed for my daughter's future husband countless times over the years. And then to kind of meet him and see him and talk to him and know who he is and the kind of man he is, I was just sort of overwhelmed. So I'm all teary and crying, yes, you know, the whole thing, you know, just like thankful, right, for what God has done and so grateful. And here's the thing, it's easy to be grateful when things are going great. Right? It's easy to be grateful when you know great things are happening and good things are moving forward and your plans are coming together. But it can be a lot more difficult to be thankful and grateful when things aren't going great at all. And the truth is, even in the best seasons, most of us have parallel things running in our lives. A lot of good things and a lot of bad things tend to run side by side, right? It's like the Dickens book, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And for most of us, that's just Monday. Right? That's every day. It's like both things. Rarely do you get seasons where everything is the best, right? And rarely do you get seasons where everything is the worst. Usually you have all of it mixed together. And so how do you remain grateful when you work in a toxic environment and you keep having to show up every day and it feels like it's just eating you alive, right? How do you remain grateful when your heart is broken over somebody who's betrayed you and you just can't seem to get over it and to heal? How are you grateful when, you keep facing health challenges and health difficulties and it feels like it's kind of out of your hands, or when one part of your body starts to finally feel better and then the other part of your body starts to break down, right? How are we grateful in difficult times? And here's the thing I would suggest today is that gratitude isn't just an emotion that we feel and respond to. That gratitude is actually a habit that we can engage. It's a practice, it's a discipline. And if we will engage in it, it will open our hearts and open our minds and change our lives for the better. So we're going to talk today about being grateful. We've been in this teaching series. This is week 2, heading into Thanksgiving. And we thought, let's just look to the Psalms, the prayer and praise book of Israel, and look at their gratitude and their Psalms of gratitude and get kind of realigned in our own hearts with how important gratitude is and can be. And Pastor Nick did an amazing job last week. If you missed that message, make sure to check it out. It was so good, about being grateful for who God is and for his character and what he's done. And I want to look with you today at Psalm 107. Now, the Psalms are very important to me. My basic devotional practice for years has been to kind of pray through a psalm every day. And so, or if it's a really long psalm, I'll take a few days, but this is what I do every day. And, I open up the Psalms, I go to the next one, I pray through it. So this one's been special to me for a lot of reasons. Psalm 107, it begins the 5th book of the Psalms, and it's kind of a whole section of gratitude and praise for God's redemption and rescue. But let me read it to you when we get to the red word. Just say it real loud here after me. It says, give what? Thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Now that line is the line that Pastor Nick unpacked so well last week as we looked at that refrain going through the psalm he was looking at. But here, again, 107, it starts with the same exact language. Give thanks to the Lord, he's good. His faithful love endures forever. And I love this. Look at this question. Has the Lord redeemed you? Raise your hand if the Lord's redeemed you. Has the Lord redeemed you? Has the Lord redeemed you? He says, well, if the Lord's redeemed you, what does he say? Speak out. He says, speak out, tell others he has redeemed you from your enemies. And so this psalm is gonna challenge us to be grateful for God's rescue and to be willing to speak about God's rescue in our lives to other people. And so here's the thing about gratitude. A lot of times we think, I'll be grateful when I have the reason to be grateful. I'll be grateful when God answers my prayer. I'll be grateful when God does the miracle. I'll be grateful when this situation changes. And I actually think gratitude works the opposite way. It's when you choose to be grateful before the miracle. It's when you choose to be grateful before the healing. It's when you choose to be grateful before the thing happens. That's when you find that God transforms your heart in a powerful way. You become a grateful person. And it changes your perspective even in the struggle. Gratitude actually positions you for greater blessing from God because you have an open heart and you have an open mind for what he can do. So how can we be more grateful? Psalm 107 challenges us a couple ways. One way is to remember God's rescue. Remember God's rescue in your own life. A while back, I was at a restaurant, and this guy called me over, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, years. And I walked over, and I said hi. And usually when you see somebody and you say hi, they say normal things to you, like, how are you doing, right? How's your family? How's the church? This is what I get a lot. How's the church, right? This guy looked at me, and this is the first thing he said to me. I said, hey, man, how are you? He says, hey, are you happy? That was kind of weird. I was like, because it's a mixed bag. If most of us are being honest, right? Yeah, I'm relatively happy. I mean, the Cowboys stink and the Raiders are struggling, and I could go on and on. It's not perfect. But I thought about it for a minute because I was sort of taken back. Like, are you happy? I'm like, And what I said to him is this, as I thought about all God has done in my life, all the goodness that he's shown me in my life, all the things I don't deserve that he's allowed me to experience in my life. And just in a second, I thought about all of that and I said, well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And I think when I'm mindful of all that God has done in my life, it doesn't matter how tough my day or my season may be, I think I can always answer, I'm grateful, even though it's hard. I'm grateful. Now, Psalm 107, he's gonna go through 4 different seasons of life, and he's gonna talk about how God can rescue us in those seasons. I wanna break these seasons down on the TV screen here, and maybe you can find yourself in one of these seasons. Maybe you've been in all of these seasons. I had somebody last night be like, Pastor, I've been in every one of these seasons, or maybe you're in some of these seasons now, and he's gonna break it down for us. So Psalm 107, first verse 4, he talks about what we might call a season of wandering. He says, some wandered in the wilderness, lost and homeless, hungry and thirsty, they nearly died. Now listen, I don't know if you've been through a wandering season in your life, but a lot of us know what it is to feel lost for a season. Some of you may be there right now. You're not sure what God's doing. You're not sure which way is up. You may have a home to rest in, or you may not, but spiritually you feel a little bit homeless. We all know what it is to feel like we're wandering in the wilderness. We're hungry, we're thirsty for more. We're not sure what's happening in our lives. We're not sure what God's doing. We're not sure which way is up. We're in a season of wandering. And in the Psalm, this individual, these people, they cry out to God for help, and God answers. And here's what it says. Look at this. Psalm 107, verse 9. He satisfies the thirsty, and he fills the hungry with good things. Come on, turn to the person next to you and say, good things. Good things. He satisfies the thirsty. He fills the hungry with good things. And God can bring good things into your life. And many of you, you've been in the season of wandering, some for years, some for decades. And you can testify today that God has brought good things into your life. So the season of wandering. Then he goes to the next season. We might call it the season of darkness. 107 verse 10, he says, some sat in darkness and deepest gloom, imprisoned in iron chains of misery. And he's literally talking about people in prison, but whether you've ever been to a physical prison or not, we all know what it is to be in chains to some kind of misery in our life, in chains to some, maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a friend. Look, maybe we just feel like we're in the darkness. We don't know where the light is. We're praying that God will turn the light on. And sometimes people of faith who are walking with God can go through a season of depression and difficulty where you just start to feel distant from God. You start to feel separate from God, and you don't know why things have changed, and you feel like you're in this season of darkness. Look, many of us have been there. Many of us will be there again. But here's the thing. When you're in a season of darkness, you can cry out to God, and look at what it says in verse 14. He led them from the darkness and the deepest gloom. I love this. He led them from the dark. He led them from the darkness and the deepest gloom. He snapped their chains. Our God is a chain breaker. He's a chain breaker. And so he can break those chains. He can set you free. He can do a work in your life. You don't have to stay in the season of darkness forever. And some of you know what it is to be set free from a season of darkness. All right, let's go to the next season here, the season of suffering. Psalm 107:17 says, some were fools. They rebelled and suffered for their sins. Can I tell you, man, this was me. Right, this was me. I went my own way for years. I thought I knew what was best. I kind of gave myself to pleasure and parties and all the things, and I made a mess of my life. I rebelled and I suffered for my sins. Because eventually the party comes to an end. And eventually you come to the end of yourself, your energy, your finances, your resources, your health. And this is where I was. But I cried out to God for help, and he did what he did not have to do. He answered, he showed up, he forgave, and he put me on a new path. Look at what Psalm 107 says, verse 20. He sent out his word and healed them, snatching them from the door of death. You could cry out to God and he will send his word. He will heal you. He will snatch you from the door of death. You'd be like, maybe you've been a fool, meaning maybe you've gone your own way. Maybe you've lived as if there were no God. Maybe you've rebelled and ultimately suffered for your sins, but that's not the final chapter of your life. That's just a season in your life, and that suffering led you to your Savior, and you cried out to him, and he sent his word, and he healed you, and he snatched you from the door of death, the season of suffering. All right, one more season, and that's the season of storms. He says, verse 23, some went off to sea in ships plying the trade routes of the world. Their ships were tossed to the heavens and plunged again to the depths. The sailors cringed in terror. Literally, he's talking about sailors, and he goes on to describe their situation. But whether you've ever been on the water or not, we all know what it is to go through storms, through turbulent waters, through the ups and through the downs. And look at what it says. In the midst of the storm, they cried out to God. And verse 29 says, he calmed the storm to a whisper, and he stilled the waves. God can still the waves in your life today. God can calm the storm in your life today. God can do what no one else can do if you will cry out to him. In fact, let's go to the refrain that we see through all of these seasons, and it shows up in verse 28, but it's a refrain through each one. The refrain is this: each of these people, they cried, Lord, help. They cried in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. They cried to God for help. And this isn't a cry like a casual cry, right? This isn't like, hey, yo, God, help me out. That'd be awesome. This is more like a cry from the gut, right? You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had that moment where you cry out to God from your gut, from the deepest part of you, where you just acknowledge, God, if you don't make a way, there will be no way. God, if you don't do a miracle, no miracle will happen. God, if you don't rescue me, I will not be rescued. If you don't show up, it'll be the end of me. Listen, God, if you don't move, I'm going to be tossed to the wolves. If you don't move, I'm never going to be healed. If you don't move, I'm never going to be able to move forward. Has anybody had that moment with God before? And you say, God, help me. Just help me. And God shows up in the season of suffering, in the season of storms, in the season of wandering, in the season of darkness. And if God has done that in your life, as the psalmist says, has the Lord redeemed you? Then speak out. Then speak out. If God has redeemed you, remember what he's done. In the difficult times, remember what he did in the past. In the hard seasons when it's really hard to be thankful. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be a hard season. Can I just be really shallow with you for a minute? We went to breakfast this week. I was all excited. My wife picked the place. Okay, we're going to go to, special thing. We're going to go to breakfast, right? We go to breakfast, we sit down. I've never been to this place. I've been there once before, but they brought the menus out. I'm looking over the menu. I'm like, they don't have biscuits and gravy here. Why are we even here? I should have never left the house. Come on, am I being too shallow, or am I being real right now? You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, I don't like anything on this menu. So I ordered something, and then just to make a point, I took 2 bites. I'm like, yeah. It doesn't always have to be big things that it can be hard to be grateful for. It can be little things. And sometimes the hardest things are the little dumb things that don't even matter. And I had to think about sitting at that breakfast place with a crummy attitude. I had to think about the fact that I was going to teach this message this weekend. And if I was any pastor at all, I'd be thankful I was alive. I could get in a car. I could sit with my wife. I could eat breakfast. Those are all gifts. And you can lose them with a bad attitude. So remember all God has done and be grateful. Listen, when you're at the end of your rope with your parenting, you just cry out, Lord, help. Man, when you can't see a way forward, Lord, help. When the burden becomes too big to bear and the stress is eating you alive, Lord, help. When the joy's gone, when the hope is gone, when it feels like it's over, Lord, help. When everything you try backfires and you're completely exhausted and discouraged, Lord, help. When you're drowning in guilt and regret and you have no idea how to make things right, Lord, help. When you burned every bridge, when you've sabotaged every opportunity, when you come up empty and unhappy and lost, God, help. Because listen, when God becomes your only hope, then he becomes your living hope. When he becomes your only hope, he becomes your living hope. Peter tells us that we have a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. It's alive and it can sustain you. And so give thanks. Remember all that God has done in your life. Be grateful. And then here's another thought. That is to share God's rescue, to share what God has done in your life. So this week I got to spend some time with a friend of mine, Pastor Josh Surratt. Great guy, and his family have had such a huge impact on the world. So many family members of his are in ministry and do incredible church planning and amazing work. They've just impacted so many people in their lives. But as I'm talking to Josh, he told me something that kind of blew me away. He said, do you know the story of our family? I said, no, I have no idea. He goes, well, my great-great-great-grandmother, Mary, ran a boarding house in Washington, D.C., and she was convicted of being involved in the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. And she was the first woman ever hung by the United States government. You can Google it, Mary Surratt. She always denied her involvement, but they convicted her, they hung her. And he said what happened in his family is for generations after that, things went downhill. You know, their name was anathema. Crime, violence, moonshine, right? All the things. He said, man, I had grandparents, you know, that lift their shirts up, bullet holes, knife scars. He's like, this was just my life. Violence, crime, pain, suffering. This was the direction of our family. He said, but my grandmother got cancer. At 28 years old, she was very sick. And a friend invited her to a tent revival that was coming to their town, and she begged her husband to take her. And her husband finally caved in and drove her there. She was too sick to get out of the car, but they could roll the windows down and get close enough to hear a little bit. And when the altar call came and everybody came forward in the tent revival, he said, my grandmother, with the window rolled down in the car, raised her hand and asked Christ to come into her life. And he said that began a journey that changed the entire lineage of our family. Because of her faith, because of her commitment, because she shared what God was doing in her life. Eventually, other family members came to faith. Other people came to believe in Jesus. They changed how they lived. They changed how they struggled. They changed their perspective on gratitude, even in tough situations. And it started to change the trajectory of their family. And Josh told me, I think it's either 24 or 28 current family members are pastors and ministers. It's crazy. And on top of that, like so many other family members serving the Lord in the marketplace, in their lives, their whole lives, the trajectory of an entire family was changed from an invitation to a tent revival. Can I just tell you, you never know what God can do with a simple invitation, right? You never know. You never know what God can do with a simple invitation. And Psalm 107, verse 31 reminds us our gratitude, our story, it shouldn't just be meant for praise for God. It should also be a public thing. Look at this. Let them praise the Lord for his great love, for the wonderful things he has done for them. Let them exalt him where? Publicly, before the congregation and before the leaders of the nation. In other words, don't just sit on what God has done in your life. Doesn't mean you got to go around beating people up with your Bible. I just mean it's okay to be genuine and honest about your story, and when the opportunity presents itself, to share what God has done in your life. And we have a simple way that we approach that at Central. 3 things. We just ask people to pray, then to invest, then to invite. First, to pray for your friends and neighbors who may be far from God, from your family members who may be far from God. Ask God to work in their heart. Ask God to give you an opportunity to share your story. Rather than just rush in and overwhelm them with it, stop and pray and just ask God to make it clear when the time is right. Sometimes the time isn't always right. God, just show me the right time, and then invest in that relationship. No strings attached. Love them, serve them, go out of your way for them. Invest in that, in those people, in that relationship. Pray and invest, and then when the time is right, you can invite them. You can invite them to come to faith. You can share your story with them. You can text them a message. If there's a message you hear or a message from church that you feel like, man, this speaks to where they're at, send it to them. When you feel like the time is open, if they have a need in their life, you can invite them to a food line or somewhere to get relief and help in their life. It's just a little seed that you're planting. It's why we have invite cards every weekend at all of our exits. It's just a way to invite people to come along. I carry them with me in my wallet, so I'm always ready. People say, what time are your service? I'm like, boom, I got you. And God can use that. I mean, he can move powerfully in that. Maybe it's just a post online. Somebody posted this week. It was texted to me, and so I thought I would share it with you. They said, I wanted to share this with anyone who's in need of prayer, someone to talk to, or needs any help taking that first step in their faith. And then they said, I called Central's 24-hour line in the middle of the night. I don't know if you know this. We have a 24-hour, 7 days a week prayer and help line. And so you can call or text anytime. I called, told them what I was going through the most painful loss. I cried to the other person for about an hour. They were so kind and open to just let me cry. It felt like a hug over the phone. I don't know if that makes sense, but they prayed over me, and they actually helped me set up my baptism. I have so much to thank the church for. When I was at my lowest, God was there and guided me to call Central, and since then, so many doors of blessings have opened. So if you're in need of prayer or help taking that step in your faith, here's the number, okay? Now, what are they doing? They're just not keeping it to themselves, right? They're just sharing. And it doesn't have to be about our church. Look, Jesus is more important than our church or anything related to our church. People coming to know Jesus and serve God is all that matters. And that's really the main thing. That's the point of it all. Plant those seeds, pray, invest, invite, that people will come to know him and serve him. Anytime I think about gratitude, I think about a friend of mine, Greg Rollinger. Greg was a pastor. He planted an amazing church in the Phoenix area. But he came down, he got a disease. And it was a very rare, it's a very complicated, long word. I won't share it. But the bottom line is this disease slowly took away his ability to move. And he actually, the doctors told him, like he told me, one day he would no longer be able to move at all, but probably still be conscious. And I saw this, by the way, he's a guy I always think about when I'm really tired. Because I remember kind of whining to him one day. He loved to come to Las Vegas with his wife and people watch and just kind of roam around, especially in his illness. I don't know, it was close. So he'd come and we'd hang out. And I was whining to him one day about, I'm tired, and there's so much going on and all this. And you know what he said? He said, Judd, every time I preach, when I'm done, he have to sit in a stool. People would help him up, help him off. He said, when I'm done, he said, I walk off and I just beg God, just give me one more weekend, God. Just give me one more. And I think about him often, especially like at Christmas and Easter when we're doing 1 million services. And I'll remind myself I hear his voice, just give me one more. Like, if you're healthy, if you can serve, if you can go, what are you complaining about, God? Just give me one more. He did this blog post once that I thought was so powerful. I've saved it all these years. He said, he woke up one morning and for a moment he couldn't open his eyes. And he thought for a minute, like, maybe this is the day I'm not gonna be able to move. And he said, I took a moment to thank God for waking me up. And then I made the determination that if I had anything to do with it, today would not be the day. And so I quoted some of my favorite scriptures. He said, reminding myself, I can do all things through Christ. right? I'm not alone in this. He said, then I went to work. First, he said he struggled to open his eyes, and it took a while. And eventually, he was able to get his eyes open. His vision was blurry, it was dark, but they were open. And then he decided, before he called on his wife or anybody to help him, that he was going to pull the blanket down over his shoulder. And so he started trying to work his fingers to climb up the blanket to pull it down. Took him about 2 hours, but he got it done. He said once he got the blanket pulled down, he was satisfied now. And he called his wife. She came in, she gave him his medication for the morning, and he spent another 2 hours getting his legs free and getting into the kitchen. And this is what he wrote. He said, with each small victory, I was reminded there is value in the struggle. He said, it was a great feeling when I finally rose out of bed and grabbed my walker. I made it to the kitchen. And he said, you know, to everybody out there who's struggling, keep fighting. Keep struggling. You may not understand why you're going through this or how you're going to make it, but God is going to use this to develop you to be more like Jesus. And my friend Greg could have been the most frustrated, angry person, but until his dying breath, he became the most grateful. And I think of him every time I teach about gratitude, because he truly was one of the most grateful people that I ever was blessed to encounter in my life. And so when I'm tired, I just remember, I hear his voice, God, just give me one more. When I'm at the end of myself, I remember once we were eating together and I looked down at the table and he wasn't there. I'm like, whoa, where'd Greg go? So I get up and I run down to the end of the table. He had just fallen out of his chair. He just couldn't, he just fell over. He's laying on his side. He can't move. And he's just laughing. He's like, help, I can't get up. I've fallen and I can't get up. We help him back up. I just remember gratitude has such power to help you get through even the darkest seasons. You can change your mood, your week, your life if you just start this practice. Just every day say, I'm grateful, and then fill in the rest, right? I'm grateful that I woke up. Come on, somebody. I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for the sleep that I got. I'm grateful for another day. I'm grateful for my coffee and a lot of it. I'm grateful that the sun is shining, that the car started, that music's playing, that I got podcasts to listen to. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for Jesus. I'm grateful for my church family. I'm grateful for the difference I'm called to make. I'm grateful that God is with me, that he's redeemed me, that he has my back, that he has plans for me, that he loves to bless his people. I'm grateful that he met me and that he didn't leave me and that he's going to see me all the way through. If you're grateful today, if the Lord has redeemed you, put your hands together. Speak out. Speak out. Speak out. That gratitude can change your life. It can change your life. Remember his rescue and share that rescue with others. Gratitude opens you in your life to more of God's incredible blessing.